Yo, what's up, It's your boy Roi back at it again with some tutorials. Today I'm going to talk about animation style. So, what is animation style? So, back in the day, in the times of like Disney and traditional 2D animation, like making actual cartoons and stuff, was kind of like the inspiration for a lot of animation styles that you see today. Um, there's also old school claymation styles, and I'm talking about like the Sinbad and the Seven Voyages. I think that's the title of it. But it's where you see a claymation monster, like the Cyclops or the Medusa, or the whatever the forearm lady with the swords. I forget her name, but those are different creatures in that movie, and OGs from that era for dancing found that as inspiration and imitated the movement of these animated claymation characters, right? There's another style called the Bugs Bunny, which comes directly from an animation show, called the Bugs Bunny, and it's based off the Looney Tunes character Bugs Bunny. There was a show that came out, like I think the 1960s or 1970s, where the character Bugs Bunny was hiding in a billboard of like Egypt, and he would jump out and hit these crazy Egyptian poses, right? And that is kind of like another form of animation, and that turned into the Bugs Bunny, which the only known person that I know that does it is my homie Libra Bop and our OG T-Bugs from Chicago. But that is another style of animation, right? Well, I wouldn't say it's animation per se, it's a type of style, but it uses different animated techniques within that style. But that's just me giving you an example of how a traditional media animated cartoon showed inspiration to a dance style that we now know as animation. There's so many different styles within animation. A lot of people just think like animation is just the stops and the sticks, but there are actually multiple styles. Just like how there's multiple styles within the popping genre, there's multiple styles within the animation genre, and those styles consist of different characters. So the thing about the animation is it's got techniques behind it, which are really simple, and then it's got the character behind it, which takes it to the next level, right? So we talked about the Cyclops. It's the Cyclops character, right? Where, you kind of look like a Cyclops. And then there's the Medusa style. I don't really know how to do it, so I'm not going to show you. But those are examples of claymation. And what the OGs did was they imitated the claymation and broke it down right into the different frames of the animation. So traditional animation is 24 frames per second. So it takes 24 pictures to create 1 second of motion. So if I'm moving like this, right, this motion, this smooth motion in my arm, 1 second of this motion, if you break it down, it's 24 different pictures to create this one arm motion, if that makes sense. So now if you dial it down to 8 frames per second, right? No longer is your motion smooth, it is now choppy. And this is where this ticking motion comes from, right? There's a popping tick, right? But it's different from the animation tick, right? Animation tick is basically faster stops in a 8 frames per second to make a picture or to make an animated film. 8 frames, 8 pictures to make an animated film. And if you dial the numbers of frames down lower to like 1 frame per second, that's essentially 1 stop. So what I'm doing is I'm not hitting or anything like that. I'm simply just seizing motion. Stop moving. Bopping Andre has this tutorial where he explains this really well, and I would look up Boppin Andre, Boppin style, and that's a good way of seeing that tutorial. But he talks about going to a complete stop, and in the sense of animation comes, it's 1 frame per second when you're dialing it down. Okay, and then when we go into the next technique, so the first technique is the stops, right? 1 frame per second. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 5 second, 6 second, 7 second, 8 second. Okay, so we dial it up to 8 frames per second. Now we're in the realm of ticking, which is the next technique. So think 8 pictures to make 1 second of an animation, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm making, so it's a choppy motion, you know, and it's not necessary, you don't have to use a lot of muscle tension. You just have to come to a clean stop. So that right there, I'm just using 20% of my muscle tension. So another reason why it's given the name tick is because it's the timing of the motion itself. So stop, 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 tick, 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 tick. See, that's the timing of every picture that you're creating. Tick, 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 tick. You can even slow down the ticks. Tick, 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 tick. Tick, 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 stop. 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 Okay. Now we dial up and add more frames per second to that animation. Now we're going into strobing. So that's in the 12 to 16 frames per second range, right? Strobing is kind of like the timing of a strobe light. That's why it's called strobing. So have you ever been in a party or been in a rave or any setting that has that strobe lighting? It's usually really fast, right? So adding more frames to that will make more sense because now you're stopping at a faster rate. Okay? So I'm going, so this is strobing. Okay, so I'm like, so it's kind of hard because you're doing ticks, right? Tick, 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 but faster. Tick, 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 tick. So I've yet to master it, but I understand the technique that's behind it, right? So now the next one is vibration. Now vibration is different from the first 3 techniques because it doesn't go. It's not like a speed change in how fast the stops or adding more frames to it. It's actually contracting your muscles so that you're vibrating. So you're squeezing it as hard as you possibly can to make that vibration happen, right? And what that does is it allows us to imitate going close to 24 frames per second, or like 20 frames per second, or 22 frames per second. You know, it's if you ever look at like old budget anime, you'll notice that the faster portions or the slower portions of their animation, sorry, not faster, but slower portions of animation is much smoother because they're adding more pictures into it, right? And so that vibration helps us add the different pictures to it too. Some people even go as far as imitating the mistakes in the animations when they like misplace different frames. I know there's a popper somewhere in Europe that does glitching. So he'll be like, you know, like he'll pretend like there was a frame that was misplaced, right? Where they're going, then they go back to where they were at, go, back to where they're at, you know. So they're like switching back one frame. So let's go over that one more time. You have your stops, right? Which is 1 frame per second. Stop. 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 You have your ticks, which is 8 frames per second. Tick, 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 tick. You have your strobes, which is 24 frames per second. Or not 24, sorry. 18 frames per second. Now, the thing with strobes is, Andre says that you don't have to do it sequentially the whole time. You know, you can break them up to be like. So think of like going slow motion, but having the chopping up the movements or the distance of each thing to be quicker. And then you have vibration, which is 22 frames per second. But we're really just contracting our muscles to get that effect, you know. So what I like to do when I use vibration is I like to add them with a stop. So for example, if I'm like here, I'm going here. So you see that effect makes it look like a hip, but all I'm doing is I'm vibrating my arms and stopping the rest of my body. Some people do their entire, like they vibrate the entire body, which I haven't gotten there yet. Now, so those are the techniques behind animation. But when you add character to it, this is where your creative freedom comes in, right? So you know there are already established characters, and I'll give you a few to start out with. But what you want to do is you want to venture out on your own and come up with your own character. Okay. So the first character the easiest characters to think of are the robot characters, right? And this is what was taught to me when I first started learning animation. The first one, and these characters come from, at least based off of my research, came from a performer, an entertainer that was hot back in the 1970s, late 1980s. Goes by the name of Robert Shields, and he kind of like paved the way of like robot dancing for all the dancers, you know. And there are other pioneers like Robot Prince, Bop and Andre, and you know other people like that. But these characters were some of the first robotic characters that I learned. So this first one is called the humanoid, which is a human pretending to be a robot. So it's, everybody does this one. I am a robot. So you notice one body part is moving at a time. And I'm not hitting. I'm stopping sharply and immediately moving another body part. So it looks like this. So I go to a stop, and as soon as my torso stops moving, and what I do to do that is just slightly tense a little bit. Some people stop by going the opposite direction. So if you're going this way, you can go that way. So for example, see, I'm literally doing this, but really small. Or you can just stop it with muscle tension. Just go to a stop, just cease moving, okay? But as soon as this body part stops moving, another body part goes. You can practice this by doing this without music and just making sound effects with your mouth. Zing. Another technique that I forgot to mention is the bounce stop, which looks like this. Pretend a bouncing ball, right? When you're throwing a bouncing ball on the ground, it goes, right? You're basically doing the same thing with your body, but you're adding the bounce stop when your body weight shifts. So the best way that it looks is when you go from putting your weight on one leg to the other leg, or leaning forward to backward. If you keep your balance on. Okay, those are bounce stops. So the next character is an android, which is the opposite. A robot pretending to be, I see a broom here, right? If I'm a robot, I want to be as human as possible, so I'm going to go over here, grab this broom. I see stuff on the floor. So an android basically just does human things, right? So for another example, I do this often, is I'll pretend to brush my teeth, you know. And then there's the mannequin, which helps me with that stop and go thing that I was telling you earlier. The mannequin is basically you are your this model thing in a store, right? And what you want to do is one body part moves at a time. And then as soon as that's done, another body part moves, at a time. And it's really slow. This will teach you patience for sure. And what you want to avoid is having your body shake around, right? It should be just one, everything is isolated. And what you can do to help you from shaking around is making the space that you move from point A to point B to be smaller. So instead of doing this, you do this. Okay. So I mean, there are other robots. There are other characters. One character that I do is called the animated puppet, which is a puppet, but it is a puppet that was created in the claymation style or in a cartoon, like a animator animated a 2D animation of a puppet. So not actually using a puppet, but an animated puppet. So with puppet, there's the bounce, the bounce or the dangle, right? But my dangle is going to be an animated dangle. So let's say 8 frames per second. It'll be like that's just another example of characters. So, just to review, animation is literally taken word from word. If I were you, I would look up the 12 principles of animation and see how that can translate over to regular animation. Stuff like exaggeration, staging, slow ins and slow outs. Look, this is a slow in. This is a slow out. See what I'm saying? They both you see people like Matt Chad do that a lot, and it comes directly from the 12 principles of animation. So check that out. So hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any questions, again, I highly suggest you do your own research. Look for the search or the source. So, talk to people like Robert Shields, who's still alive. Talk to people like Bach and Andre, Robot Prince, LA Poppers, animators like Heavy Hitters Crew, Mega Man, Ultraman. There's so many people in the game that does animation. Even the Popper Soul, he does animation too. So definitely reach out to him. But definitely do your own research, because what I'm telling you is probably not the same thing somebody else is going to tell you, or what an OG will tell you. And the reason why I'm telling you the way that I am is I am an actual animator. Like, I do animation for a living as a profession, 2D animation. So I'm able to give you the same terminology animators use that make cartoons and translate them to dancing. So that's kind of where my different perspective is, and I encourage you all to find your perspective. So hopefully that was helpful, and let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks.